Hey everyone, I've been taking a bit of a break from Armored Core and playing some War Robots Frontiers. This game's pretty interesting, and it is more like games like Dota, League of Legends, Heroes of New Earth, those sort of battle arena maps where you have a team, and the game essentially revolves around team fights and team synergies. And right now, it doesn't seem like the population is really playing that way, which is kind of interesting. So you can really make a lot of difference for your teams if you run things that are neglected right now, like things like support classes like disarm and the disables. And yeah, I've been having a lot of fun with some off meta builds, so I figured I'd just make a video walking you through really quickly all the builds I've been playing on. And most of them are not leveled up. I think I've only got two that are leveled up right now, just to 9, which is my Ares, my double shotgun, and then my Titan, of course, is leveled up. So let's just walk through the builds, and I'll explain the synergies I came up with and how they work. And yeah, you can, if you want to jump on some more robots and try out these builds, have at her. Let's start with my favorite build right now and probably my strongest one. It makes use of the Ares frame, and the goal of this build is essentially to just keep the shield regenerating through pilot perks and equipment. And the way we're going to do that is, first off, I started off with the shoulders. We're going to want to run Ares because it has the highest base shield pool. Its regeneration isn't great, but that's fine because we're not actually trying to get our shield on like off cooldown and regenerating. We actually get our shields back through damage and other means. So I started off with the Ares shield shoulders because they can sponsor 2 light weapons, and that's going to let me run 4 of the shredders. The shredders I picked because they are decent at range. They also have just really good outgoing fire because they don't need to reload that often, or rather, sorry, they do reload, but it's such a short reload that it really creates this sort of sustaining outgoing fire, which synergizes really well with the amount of shields we have, because a lot of other builds are going to have to reload, and their builds are designed to basically finish the fight before they have that moment where they got to do the long reload. Things like Scourges, Lighters, and etc. They really are banking on being able to end the fight quickly, so they don't have to deal with their poor reloads. So these weapons are basically not performing in terms of damage per second as well as other weapons. However, they just have very little downtime. So if the longer the fight goes on, the more it tilts in your favor. And given that we're building up massive shield pools, the fight's going to be going on pretty long. So that's why I picked those weapons. Really quickly, we'll jump into the pilot perks because I think this is probably the most important thing to look at. So I picked Kate Sinclair, and I'll just work in reverse order. So after losing shields, you reflect damage. Usually, very rarely does this actually come up because you are keeping your shields up so much. But even if they do manage to break your shields, they start taking even more damage. The next perk, activating defensive gear, reduces the shield cooldown. So this is going to work really well with Wrath and with emergency shield. So the way we use Wrath is to put up a barrier which stops the damage from hitting us unless they target our legs, or if it's blast damage. And the idea is, if when the fight first starts, the goal is to let them drain our shield most of the way, then activate Wrath and energy shield at the same time. Now, because we won't have cycle gear at the beginning, this will work with this perk really well. So what happens is, they've knocked our shield down, we put up the Barrier of Wrath. This is going to speed up our shield cooldown reduction, and so we're going to start regenerating our shield behind the Wrath at the same time, unless they get lucky hits in. But even if they do, it doesn't matter, because Energy Shield is also kickstarting our shield regeneration as well, and really synergizing well with the very large shield pool that the Ares shoulders offer. Okay, whenever all your gear is on cooldown, gives you a free 20,000 shield. So that also works really well because we kick off both of our gear pieces as soon as our shields are almost down. We immediately go on cooldown, get a big lump sum of 20,000 shields, plus emergency shield's going to kick in and start adding even more regen. So they have to knock down our initial, like I'm not even fully leveled up here, but 60,000 shields. Then we get 20,000 shield back, so call that 80, plus we start regenerating. I just call this, I don't know, 55 times 5, it's what, like 28,000 roughly. So then you get another 28,000 just in shield regeneration. On top of that, for every 100,000 damage we do with our shredders, you get another 30% of our shields back. Now, again, because Ares has the largest pool, that 30% is the largest possible refund of shield if we do the damage. So again, the longer the fight's going on, we're getting that huge pool of another 10,000 or 20,000 because we have 2 Ares shoulders. We get another 20,000 shields that way. Lastly, we take less damage. I took this over weapons reload faster because our reload's already so fast and our gear cooldown's not that important. This, however, indirectly gives us more shields because, again, we're taking less damage, so it's basically creating a net, like, divided by 9.7. That's how much shield we end up getting. Okay, so emergency shields should be pretty self-explanatory why we run that. And then flashbang's another way to get shields back. So if we get our shields knocked down, not only do we drain all of our gear and put it back on cooldown if we use the flashbang, and that's going to give us another 20,000 shields, but the delay when they're flashbanged is going to let our shields start regenerating as well. So this build is basically meant to be an initiator that's really good at shrugging off a lot of damage and not taking armor damage in the meantime. So it keeps up the shield and prevents the enemy from being able to wear us down unless they have just a lot of firepower. The Wrath works really well because it's a sheer block. It doesn't actually hit our shields when they hit the Wrath barrier, so that is a great way to mitigate a lot of damage as well. Your goal with this build is really to just keep the pressure on the enemy, keep them moving back, and they can't really overwhelm you so easily, and you want to try to draw fire off of your teammates. Again, this is another meta sort of the build that's not really favored in the meta. Like, nobody seems to do these types of roles, like supporting roles. So we're in effect a tank that can push forward until all of our stuff is on cooldown, and then we kind of have to back off and let our shield regenerate. And the faster you level up the Ares torso, the quicker it goes on cooldown, you can get back in the fight. In terms of upgrading, I would start with the shoulders though. Get those, like, try to hit certain breakpoints in the upgrades. I don't really have time to go through all of them, but you'll notice that there's certain key moments in upgrading that happen first. A big one would be, like, you want to get your shield pool big. So, like, every level up that affects the base shield amount is going to be important on this build. Okay, so yeah, I'll just do a quick clip of the build fighting like the Titan in testing environment. And this was before I leveled it up, by the way, so it's even weaker. But just to show how much damage this thing can shrug off. And I'll include some clips as well. So before I jump into some PvP, I just want to show the sheer amount of, like, blocking and sustain that this build has, as long as you keep your outgoing fire on armor pieces. Don't target shields or you won't get the armor damage, and then you won't get your shields getting regenerated once you've done 100,000 damage. But yeah, you can see this sheer amount of, like, ability to block a lot of different incoming damage. Blast damage will get around it, and there are certain weapon types that do, but that's why we're layering on defenses with, like, the energy shield gear, and also we're just stealing shields as well. Keep in mind too, as well, you're vulnerable from behind, and like I said, blast damage can get behind Wrath from the Ares torso, and some other weapon types too, like artillery, missiles, or not. But you can. It's not about blocking everything. It's just about mitigating as much incoming damage as possible. This build is really good at chase downs, though, and because the legs are quite fast, and, like, you can just ignore their incoming damage most of the time and just push right through it. And you don't need to, like, pivot the damage around you because you're keeping shields up rather than trying to split damage across your armor. So you can just really keep your focus on firing at them and getting. I like to think that shield stealing. Also, in teamfights, make sure you don't expose yourself to the opponents like that are trying to flank you. You want to try to funnel them all into front of you. So sometimes that means you have to move backward to pull them all in front of your Wrath shield. And don't forget too, the Wrath shield also does a lot of damage. So, like, while it's up, that's a great time to burst down critical people. And you really want to make use of that, not just as a shield, but as an enhanced damage moment as well. You don't want to get too aggressive and leave your team either with this build. Like, again, the general idea with the build is to take damage for your team during team fights, and then also be the one that can push more aggressively than others in order to finish off kills that are trying to run away.
Here's everything. Attack here. Double or quit. Fire.
Enemy Titan deployed. I need assistance. Enemy tagging deployed.
They don't quit.
Incoming missiles.
Power on!
Enemy tagging deployed.
Here's everything. This guy's gone. Keep him coming.
Enemy tagging deployed. Enemy tagging deployed.
Bring it down.
Enemy blinded.
We did it.
Okay, up next, another build that I have a lot of fun playing. Definitely not as strong as my shield build, but the general idea with CamelSpider here is to basically be a defensive tool for your team. So when enemies try to rush in and pick off one of your teammates, that's when you activate Sprint Reactor and Fenrir Core and run in and just burst down builds. You can pop lightweights so fast. You can even go toe-to-toe with Titans with this build just because of the sheer amount of damage it can put out, and it also lifesteals. So I'll just walk through it. The general idea was to build around double thunders. I ended up using the Scourge because of the weight. It's something I can fit on this while maintaining enough speed to actually close the gap with the thunders, which is usually the biggest problem with them. But it also does pretty good armor damage. So first we'll take a look at the pilot perks again. That's always kind of like what you build around. So if I do kill an enemy within close range, which is always with the shotguns, you get a huge amount of armor regenerated. So that's synergizing with Fenrir's life steal basically whenever it's activated on Ragnarok. So I would definitely upgrade Fenrir's core first on this build to get that 15% health burned off upgrade as quickly as possible. So you get that at level 7, cuts it basically in half. So you want to get that right away so that activating Fenrir doesn't cost you so much health. And in effect, you can actually life steal and end up with more health when you end up ganking enemies that rush in. So if you do have the cycle gear, this is really fun too. So you activate Sprint Reactor and run in on them and then deploy the mines immediately and it'll just blow up and you can basically kill lightweights immediately, just like one salvo if it lines up really nice and you target a weak spot. We run the Fenrir legs because they've got decent max speed and enough weight and energy to carry these weapons. The Orochi shoulders can sponsor heavy weapons and give us a reasonable amount of shields. We do want that. The more shields we have, the less armor damage we're going to take when we activate Fenrir. So we kind of want to make it so that we can shrug off the initial bit of damage they do, and then we can land up to, like, hopefully just 2 thunders outright, and you can pop most builds basically in a quick succession. So going back to the pilot perks, taking damage speeds up your reload. This one I wasn't super stoked with because honestly I would have taken fire rate so the shotguns could fire faster, but that's not an option on any of the pilots I saw. And nothing here really seems to help me. We're not running defensive gear or anything, and we don't really need damage reduction because we lifesteal. And the fights are going to be over so fast anyways. Weapons deal more damage, though, is definitely valuable with the shotgun. Auto cannons do more damage, again, super helpful with Fenrir, it's synergizing. And then take less damage just helps us to shrug off initial bits of damage and end the fight quicker. So like basically it's synergizing with Fenrir's lifesteal. Okay, I'll just do a quick clip of this one and some clips maybe in PvP as well. So this build is a defensive build, even though it does rush down. It's more meant to protect your more vulnerable allies, because once you commit to initiating, you can't really back out. However, you can kill opponents really fast with this one. So if you have Minefield, you're going to activate that first. If you don't, you can just go right into Fenrir and shotgunning their shoulders or whatever's vulnerable. You can basically 2 or 1 shot a lot of builds, especially if your teammates are helping by knocking out the shields. You're pretty much going to put them on critical in 1 shot. So yeah, I'm just guarding this left alleyway for my flank, or on our flank, and trying to protect my teammates that are trying to use the wall. You really don't want to cross open fields, because again, this build is not that fast, and Sprint Reactor will make you briefly fast, but it runs out and then you're stuck in the open. So again, you always want to try to be using this build. It's kind of why I called it the CamelSpider. You want to stay tucked in, and then you sort of pounce out and then retreat back to your defensive area. But yeah, you can see like you just pop opponents extremely quickly, and you lifesteal so much. Even during the fight with Fenrir, you're every time you hit them in an armor piece, you're just getting a good chunk of your health and some shields back every time. So yeah, the biggest issue I'll find with this is if you miss shots, and the shotgun does seem to have a pretty finicky targeting and like lead amount up close, so you do have to be very precise with your shots. Try not to panic and just shoot as soon as it's off reload, unless you're confident in the shot. But yeah, that's pretty much summing up how this one works. Just play close defense for your teammates, try to cut off approaches, and then if the enemy, if there's no approaches to guard, or if it's sort of like a whole big team fight somewhere, then you basically just play behind your lightweights and near the front line in the middle, but just behind 1 layer of teammates, and then you move forward as soon as the enemy tries to rush in and like take down one of your critically low teammates. And you shut that down by basically just popping them. And you can even kill Titans with this build. Like, it is a really good Titan hunter. Obviously, if they have orbital laser, or if the Grim has got the saw blades, that's going to kind of shut down your ability to keep the fight right on top of them. But I mean, the orbital laser you can basically jump through. But yeah, this thing can mess up even like the matriarchs. You can't solo a matriarch, especially with their heal, but if you have teammates helping you, you're going to do the vast majority of the work. You just need a little bit of help to help finish off the Titans with this build. This fight was a good example of once you commit, you have to stay in the fight and just keep pressuring, and even if it means dying, the point of this build is just to take out like 3 opponents or so if you can. That's a good trade. So don't try to back off. Once the fight's there, you're basically pushing through, unless there's a nice safe opportunity like here to just get your shields back and start over. But you're much more efficient when Fenrir's up. Not that you need it, but you are much more efficient because of the lifesteal per shot instead of just getting the lifesteal for kills. One thing that can be annoying on this build, though, is when your teammates take the last hit to get the kill and you don't get the heal. But assuming you're hitting them like a truck, it should be, as long as you're pacing your shot to line up for the last hit, it shouldn't be a problem. But yeah, that's basically the idea of this build. It's very aggressive, and it can rapidly shut down opponents that try to rush your front line and try to get kills on like super vulnerable. And just make sure you're always playing close to cover and don't get greedy into the open fields. You always want to make sure that you're not overextending, or if you are going to overextend, it better be the fight goes to completion. You guys take out all the opponents. Okay, taking a look at another initiator style build. So this one is more centered around being a tank for the team and also a really good support for pushing zones like warp zones and spearhead when you have to go into an area where sometimes it's really dangerous and you know that somebody's going to be taking damage. Well, this build is designed to be the initiator and also to help teammates that are in trouble if they went in first because of the Griffin Scrambler. The Scrambler is what this build is built around. So prevents enemies from locking on with missiles, which is really helpful in other abilities, and also splits all incoming damage across all modules. That's the main thing here. So that perk really works well with heals, especially heals that affect all modules. So I ended up deciding to run a pretty hefty mech, but not too heavy because I'm already going to be tanky enough with this. I wanted to have some speed. And so I aimed for around 90,000 armor and everything. You'll notice everything's not leveled up right now on this build. The legs are a bit weaker, but I get 2 legs anyways, so it's fine. And then the pelvis I can kind of block anyways. So first, you are going to notice I'm running double support gear here, and both of them are heals. I'm going to look at the pilot first, though, because this is the main crux of the build with Scrambler. So first off, using support gear gives me 4,000. So if I use both of my heals, I get 8,000 armor to all modules healed. Whenever you lose shields, a random module regenerates 4,000 armor. So that's another 4,000 heal. Also, this works really well with backup plan. Whenever all your gear's on cooldown, activates 20,000 shields for 10 seconds. So in other words, what you kind of want to do is let them break your shield, activate all of your gear, which will give you another 20,000 shield. They'll break that down presumably in under 10 seconds, which is going to give you another regeneration of heal of 4,000. And then we've got autocannon shotguns do more damage, which are all my weapons, and then take less damage from all sources. Another tank sort of perk, which is working really well with all of our heals. So basically, this build just keeps healing, and if you have a healer on your team, even better. Then you just get even stronger. I ended up doing 2 Punishers, 2 shotguns, just because this tends to be a nice balance between having some medium range pressure but still having a lot of close range pressure, so you can't be bullied out even if you are using scramblers. I may not have the DPS of lighters and whatnot, but because I'm splitting their damage up, it ends up making it that I can still bully them and just out heal whatever they are doing as long as I have scrambler available on the opening salvo. Now granted, once scrambler's gone, then they can burst us down, so you do kind of want to rely on your team to pick up the slack if you don't have the DPS in certain team fights. But again, this build is not a high damage per second build per se. It's about drawing the enemy's team, making them burn a lot of their magazine, and you split the damage up nicely and then can heal it super efficiently, both by yourself and especially if you have teammates doing it with you on top. So I'm just going to show using this build to help save a teammate here. So here we have a team fight starting in the center of the map, and I notice one of my teammates is starting to take massive armor damage to the shoulder. So if you can run in, you want to get there before they take too much, otherwise it's not going to really matter if they're splitting the damage if there's only a sliver left. But yeah, here it just turns the tide of the fight around, no problem. My teammate's fairly well covered, and I can then go back to help defending another zone, and we'll use this opportunity to take out another opponent. Now, once your scrambler's down, you are going to end up taking damage to a significant port, like module or a specific module. That's kind of when the quick repair comes in handy, just because it's always targeting the one that's the weakest currently. So yeah, that's another reason this support piece is so helpful. And you do get quite a lot of charges with it, all things considered. I mean, not a ton, but you get like more than I actually think you should, but I'll take it. So the only big downside with it for me right now is the cooldown, because this build is not leveled up, but helping the cooldowns on all these gears would really help out this build in terms of just helping to use that or split that damage across modules more frequently. But I'll get there once I level this one up. Like I said, I haven't been playing this game long, so other than that, it's really good at helping shut down gankers, that like with lighters, because they are really designed to just burst down one opponent on one specific module. They're not really good when the damage is being split out throughout multiple areas. Yeah, and other than that, I think that this build is pretty self-explanatory. It's just the only problem I would say with this build is, and like many of my builds, is that you kind of depend on teammates to capitalize on what you're giving them. I love support builds in MOBA games, MOBAs, but it doesn't seem like the community really knows how to use them, to be honest. Like, they don't realize that a supporting mech is giving you good opportunity. Like right there was a great opportunity to push, but you can see my teammates are just sort of playing in the back way too long. If they had come in earlier, I wouldn't have had to take so much damage in order to get that kill for them. Here's another one that I'm going to give. Yeah, you don't really want to focus on getting the kill with this build. It's not important to you. Your main job is keeping yourself tanky enough to keep healing, and just to set up your teammates for kills and to protect them when they're getting bursted down. You can put the Scrambler on them.
Repairing armor.
Allies hold more warp gates. Enemies hold more warp gates.
Repairing armor.
Ejecting.
Let's take a look at a sniper build. So double Zeus's are really common, but I think this is honestly better. It has a really powerful amount of outgoing fire. The initial burst is not as strong, but you can win trades. So the idea was to build around Ever on this one. So Ever has some interesting perks. Snipers have a 15% chance to do 50% more damage. So because I'm running 3 weapons, I actually have a higher chance of one of them proccing off that effect. So it's more reliable and consistent than if I had double Zeus's. So each of those weapons get a chance, and then randomly you'll get all 3 activating this, which is insane. Okay, so what else do we have? So this is important charge loop. We're trying to charge up infinite ammo on this build as frequently as possible. Now, fortunately, we are encouraged to burn off our equipment as quickly as possible. So as soon as the fight starts, activate the Purifier Core, which does apply to you. I tested it. So you get 25% more damage that way. And you can burn off their fuel, which really makes them vulnerable to your sniping because they can't really jet out of there. So immediately deploy that, and both of those are going to be charging up infinite ammo, which is going to become really useful later on when you see all of the perks synergies. And the weapon choice. Okay, so after destroying a foe, you reload faster. This is just really good for like just the idea here is to have a sniper that just has tons of outgoing fire, just can take down multiple targets really quickly. Everything else here I didn't really need, so this one just sort of made sense. Snipers do even more damage. You'll notice that's a running trend in this build, and your weapons reload faster, again, trying to get lots of outgoing fire. So the big thing here was to stack the Purifier Core with 3 snipers. Now these snipers are nice because they have a 3-round magazine, which means, and they don't charge up, which means they work really well with infinite ammo because you fire 3 times, activate infinite ammo, and then just keep firing while Purifier's up, and you can put out an insane amount of damage. So I'll include some clips of that. So Purifier's boosting our damage. We've got Ever boosting our damage in multiple ways, both in the outgoing fire with weapon reload, but also with sniper damage, plus, again, more reload, and then activating infinite ammo, and then getting this effect to proc very frequently. You can utterly delete builds. The Dragoons are really powerful, and I think they're kind of slept on. So, like, look at that 9,300 damage. And this is a level 1 Dragoon, by the way. So, yeah, you obliterate shields when you hit them with 3 of them. These are not as strong as a Zeus initially, but you get to shoot 3 times quite quickly. And you've got the chance of that proc kicking off, and you've got Purifier boosting your damage. And if you've used all of your gear frequently and you build up infinite ammo, then you just become a absolute laser beam that can melt builds so fast. Shoulders, this was just effectively trying to make the weight work. Also, they have decent shields. I did want to be able to absorb Zeus's pretty... like try to absorb as much damage on the chin with the shield as possible. So running the Sirens had that double benefit. Decent shield pool, but also has... the ability to sponsor heavy weapons for reasonably lightweight. So like a level 1 Zeus, for example, is 14,271 times 2, so that's about a little under 30,000 shields. So if I do eat the chin of the of the Zeus, then I take most of it just to the shields, and then I get to trade with much more shield and armor damage than they hit because I get to shoot 3 times. So yeah, if I'm hitting at 18 versus their like 30,000, but I get to shoot 3 times. You can see why you'll end up winning the trades unless they play cover really well. But you're very good at just pressuring them off and forcing them to go back behind cover. Yeah, okay, so that's that build, and include some clips of that one. So I'm not a big fan of sniper builds. They're just kind of bland to me. But this one plays a little bit more closer to the front line. However, you do want to keep a healthy bit of distance between you and the enemies, just because you are running a sniper after all, and it's just not that good, especially if you miss shots. But yeah, activate the purifier frequently and often. You're really trying to take advantage of the ability to charge your cycle gear and set up, ideally, a purifier enhanced infinite ammo salvo. So where you activate purifier, shoot 3 times, activate infinite ammo, and keep shooting. I am going to do that with this build in a little bit, where I end up taking out a Grim. But this build's really good at shutting down like lanes of fire. So like I love this area in the map where I can just kind of shut down the whole center channel, and the amount of damage this thing can put out compared to a Zeus, so typically need to tuck in after doing 1 shot. I can just keep putting fire out, and the fuel burn is honestly slept on. This is such a good ability. It's really good when gankers try to get behind you as well and try to take you out, like try to get on the backside of the map. They're going to often do that and try to target snipers and whatnot. But yeah, you burn their fuel and they're a sitting duck. Just make sure you communicate with your team to help capitalize on it and be like, hey, I'm going to burn his fuel. So get ready to punish this guy for coming this deep into our territory. Like here's a good example. This guy's going to be trying to back cap our zones, and I'm going to cut him off, fuel burn him, and then we're going to gank him. So yeah, they rely a lot on their ability to jump in order to stay alive, and shutting that down puts them in a pretty precarious position. So I do end up missing a couple of shots there, but I activate infinite ammo because this guy ain't getting away on me. But yeah, the ganker bots are really dependent on being able to jump a lot, so you definitely want to make use of your fuel burn, because again, that's also charging up your cycle gear. You really don't want to be sitting on your gear. That's kind of why you play this build a little bit closer than most snipers. It's more of a counter sniper that helps in team fights by just creating a sheer amount of DPS. And then if there's multiple targets, you can focus more on shields, because these weapons are shield stripping specialists. That's not to say don't target the weakest one, but if you feel like your teammate has it in hand, start working on shields of other opponents to help them get a head start on taking out the next target, because yeah, your real specialty is the amount of damage these do against shields.
Take him out.
Yeah, so that ganker was getting real annoyed. He ended up coming again to try to back cap. I'm going to start working on it. I communicate to the team that I'm going to fuel burn him. So I got a buddy on my right now that is going to help me knock this guy out. Obviously, I'm just going to try to split the damage across my modules here, because it's got a long reload anyways, which is nice. You have the luxury of being able to mitigate the damage that way because you're reloading anyways. So we end up knocking this gank out pretty quickly. I do have to work on my aim with these guns. I'm not that good at them yet, but I don't normally play long range builds, that's the thing. I like initiators.
Destroy the Titan.
Boosting weapons.
Trouble ahead.
Infinite ammo.
Bigger, not better. Tactical retreat. Incoming! Target.
Boosting weapons. Infinite ammo.
I need assistance!
Enemy fuel burns.
Some help?
All right, everybody's lineup needs a ganking build that is highly mobile, especially if you want to like back cab zones that are being undefended quickly and just maneuvering around the map. So these gankers are usually designed to be fairly fragile, but they're really good at taking down like one opponent using their equipment. And then usually need to back off. So I didn't want to do a lighter build though. I do have one. I just want to do something a little different. So I decided to build around the incinerators. So these have better range than the lighters, which is really nice. So I'm running 2 of these, and they also apply a dot, which is going to come up with the pilot. And then I also have the halo here to help out at good range and to help contribute in team fights a little bit at knocking down shields, which also works really well for me when I'm ganking, so that I can either hit multiple people in team fights with this arc pattern, or I can use it to just help burst down the shields a little quicker and get the incinerators doing work on armor. The torso I'm going to use, by the way, is the Scorpion. This one has a really cool effect where it if it kills the opponent or they die before the effect runs out, then you get it recycled and you can immediately use it again. So this build is quite good at keeping the pressure up and engaging multiple targets. Even in team fights, I can, as long as I'm peeking cover well and taking into account how fragile I am, given the shields are 30,000, but the armor of this build is quite light. You basically have to be only engaging when you have full shields. Okay, let's take a look at the pilot. So shots have a chance to hit all targets modules. That should be self-explanatory. Pretty handy when that kicks off. Especially because it applies the dot to all modules, which is really nice, especially if they're like shielding and trying to protect their vulnerable one. Randomly, you'll get the super weak module hit with the dot. Taking damage speeds up your reload. That's good for when you're ganking one-on-one, gets you around the slow reload of the incinerators. This one's obviously the main perk here. All effects, including the torso and the incinerators, are getting stronger and last longer. Shotguns and special weapons do more damage. That's going to apply to both my weapons, by the way, because the halo is a shotgun and the incinerators are special. And weapons reload quicker. So pretty self-explanatory there. I mean, this one's not that imaginative of a build, to be honest. It's just an interesting way to make the incinerators work, and they are good at fighting lighters because I can fight them outside their effective range. Flashbang just is really good for any ganking builds I find in general. I do have quite a lot of energy left over here, so that was a big question for me. Do I run recon? Do I run this? But I ended up just taking flashbang. It's just such a strong, especially against bots, such a strong piece of gear. And supply gear just helps me get in and out really quickly. Siren legs are running 23 fuel here, unleveled. But having that plus the fuel makes this build highly evasive and can quickly get in and out, letting my dot do a lot of the work while I run behind cover and get my shields back pretty quickly. Yeah, one reason I really like the Scorpion torso over the Napalm of the Harpy is, especially for team fights, you get to use it multiple times. The only thing I would caution is if you're up against tanks or heavier builds, don't use the Napalm or the Scorpion ability too early, because if it runs out and they're not dead, then you have to go on cooldown. So you really want to try to save this for like the last half of armor. And so if they're lightweights though, or anything not super tanky, then obviously have at her initiate it right away and get the most amount of damage per second building up. But be just careful with Titans and heavier builds. Also, don't get greedy. This build is meant to finish off targets and work with your teammates. You really want them to contribute a little bit of the damage first, especially like stripping the shields if they can, just because this build is fragile. Fights need to end quickly. So you always want to be playing near cover, doing your damage, tucking in quickly. You don't have to finish off the whole magazine of the incinerator if it's leaving you too vulnerable.
Here's one.
Restoring fuel.
Another really nice thing about the incinerator is it stalls their shield regen, so when the fight takes a break like this, I can wait for my shield to come back. While theirs is not, they're going to be under a lot more pressure, and I can choose whether or not to engage or to back off. But here, there's no opportunity to get their shield back. That's another feature of the Siren shoulders too, is they got reasonable shoulder or shield regen. It's a shame I couldn't get a perk like that, like one that speeds up your shield regen when you activate X gear, but c'est la vie. That's okay. The build works just fine with this. You can see how the range is really nice too, especially the halo combined with double incinerators. It really lets you contribute something, whereas like a lot of lighter builds can't do much when the team fights in these long open channels unless they're willing to commit. I can still at least poke out shields at range, even against multiple targets, and if I can land a little splash of incinerator on folks at a decent range, then I can also add a surprising amount of built up damage while I'm safe behind cover.
Blast 'em.
Allies hold more warp gates.
Target weakened. Target weakened. Speed boost.
Engaging. Kisses. Mwah. Downrange. Move it, people.
Enemy revealed. Target weakened.
Enemy Titan deployed.
Whiplash restored.
Trouble ahead. Deuce. Here's one. Destroy the Titan. Trouble ahead.
All right, that's my lineup to date. Obviously, I've got more builds that I also like, but these are the ones I'm playing with right now. I'm definitely going to focus on the disarm mech that I have. I really like that support build. That thing is a game changer in team fights as long as your teammates are making the most of that time. But for now, this is what I'm enjoying and leveling up, and I'm playing around with this instead of Armored Core for just a little bit. We'll see what happens though soon.